I was recently attacked on social media about a topic that is near and dear to my heart: disability. If you've been with me on this journey for some time, you know that I am the daughter of a disabled father, and I've never known any different. This month would have been my dad's 81st birthday. 2022 marks 20 years without him by my side, and July is, coincidentally, Disability Pride Month. This month is important, not only for the disabled community, but for all of us, because it is likely that you know someone who has or had a disability, or perhaps you live with one yourself. So instead of focusing on some unkind words and giving them power, I am taking that power back and elevating this message. Because focusing on the positive power of thought and how it moved me to record this rather raw episode instead of going inward or stepping away is why I'm here sharing space with you on HIListically Speaking. This is a space for more diversity, inclusivity, compassion, kindness, humor, and most of all, love. But here's the kicker. My intention was to take July off, give myself a break from the microphone, put my focus elsewhere for a while just to recharge a bit. After losing my stepdad in June and then releasing a few rather personal episodes on the topics of gun control and reproductive rights, my brain just needed a break. And in the work that I do, it's really rare I get that pause unless I give it to myself. I too need to be kind to my mind so that I could show up for you every week on HIListically Speaking, for my clients on a daily basis, for my friends and my family, and most importantly, for myself, because it really does begin within. So, what is Disability Pride Month? Well, it's nothing new. It's in its 32nd year, and it commemorates the Americans with Disabilities Act, the ADA, which came to life on July 26, 1990. And this prohibits discrimination against people with disabilities. Stony Brook University said it best, that this is a time to recognize and celebrate how disability is a natural part of human diversity, in which people living with disabilities can take pride. And by people living with disabilities, that means all people. From sensory perception and mental illness to the invisible and the undiagnosed, cognitive and intellectual, and yes, physical, just like my father. But also this month holds space for those who have lost their lives, not only to their illness, but also to negligence, suicide, and eugenics. All. So when you think of the word pride, I ask that you think outside the box and not just focus on one community, but all. All who are proud of who they are and how they are showing up in the world, making a difference, being, doing, having, thriving. Because the word pride has true meaning. By definition, pride means reasonable or justifiable self-respect. And isn't that what every community with pride is working endlessly to do? Raise awareness about the very thing that creates rocket fuel in their soul? I think so. And that's why this week I decided to come back a little earlier than expected to share a number of episodes and podcasts that are dedicated or have covered stories of disabled pride, from both the HIListically Speaking archives as well as other shows that I highly respect. So where should we begin? How about we take a trip to the circus?
You know, it's hard for me to be kind of down about any of the stuff I'm going through when I'm working with people who either already came into this world with a big, odds stacked against them, or entered into that particular life by happenstance or whatever, and they still have the courage and the creativity and the daring to still make something of their life and something beautiful out of their life, that it can reach many. So, I mean, I think that's, to me, that's my soul B shot.
Recently, I shared a 2-part series with the last ringmaster, Johnathan Lee Iverson. Now, Johnathan is larger than life and held center ring at the greatest show on earth for years. And it was there that he discovered his own, as P.T. Barnum calls it, peculiar genius. But when he made that shift to the Omnium Circus, the theater for the I'm Possible, a circus devoted to the multi-able performers, something special happened. When I was invited to the circus in May, I was truly inspired by what I witnessed on that stage. Belonging, talent, devotion, discovery, pride. Anything is possible. Episodes 82 and 83 are sure to make you feel like a kid again, but also remind you of something my father has said to me time and time again, that disability does not mean inability. John Furniss is another example of that.
My blindness has allowed me to slow down and examine life, to be able to contemplate it more. I don't know, because as a blind person, I'm in my head all the time. Even when I'm with other people, I'm still in my head because I'm creating my reality through my imagination. So it's allowed me to kind of, I don't know, just have an extra sort of space, I guess you could say, to contemplate things.
When I stumbled upon the Blind Woodsman's TikTok earlier this year, I have to admit I fell in love. With John's work, with his connection to his craft, the beautiful way that he and his wife Annie, also known as Honeybee, hold space for each other, and his own story of trauma to triumph. On episode 75, you'll have the chance to experience life through a different set of eyes and find out how love truly is blind when it comes from the heart. Give it a listen. The world will likely look a little bit different after hearing John's story. Now, every once in a while, I have the opportunity to share my own story with listeners. Gustavo Serafini's Enabled Disabled podcast was one of those times.
I think it's amazing that you had these challenging experiences as a child, and the way you responded is amazing, with empathy, with surrounding yourself in those communities even more, volunteering. For me, when I went to the doctor, and there was a bunch of people, and I saw other kids there and the hospitals, the only thing I wanted to do is I wanted to get out of there and I wanted to go back to my life. And I didn't know, growing up, anybody else with a disability. It was like my quote unquote normal life, where I was pretending to be or trying to be like everyone else. And then there was the medical side, which I have to do it periodically because I have to do it. I never embraced, that community until a few years ago. And I did some volunteer work as well in the 90s, but it took a long time for me to embrace the community and to want to get to know other people with disabilities and to talk about it openly. It was always a separation for me. So I think it's kudos to you. It's marvelous that you were able to, even within that trauma, that difficulty, to just actually embrace it and go deeper into it.
On episode 62 of HIListically Speaking, I shared that episode from Gustavo's show when he held space for me to open up with listeners about what it's like to grow up with a disabled dad. It was vulnerable, it was beautiful, and it was really special. And that was possible because of Gustavo's compassion and endless kindness. Gustavo himself is part of the disabled community, and let me tell you, he is a force to be reckoned with. So join me and Gustavo on episode 62 and get to know me a little better. By the way, Gustavo is also a connector of people. He's actually the reason why you know a little bit more about the Omnium Circus, and also my guest, Kimberly Warner. On episode 61, Kimberly shared her story about what it's like to constantly be in motion, literally.
Hollywood loves the unfixed stories, but they're the ones where they overcome it and they climb to Everest, with one limb. And I like, where are these stories? And I spent years thinking I was alone in this. Mm-hmm. First, thinking that I was losing my mind, thinking maybe that I'm having some sort of psychotic break. And then second, thinking, well, I can't find anybody out there that's dealing with this. And I look totally normal. So there's that other layer of having an invisible disorder where people look at you and go, come on, you look fine.
Kimberly has a vestibular disorder, and she's had it since 2015. And with no cure for this chronic illness that has her constantly rocking, swaying, and bobbing, she's using her movement to move mountains by turning her love of filmmaking into unfixed media, a safe space for stories of others living with disabilities to be told. Kimberly is the kind of friend you want in your circle. And once you listen to her story of how she found her own calm and grace in a world that is always in motion, you'll soon discover on episode 61 that being unfixed is far from being broken. And that's really where this episode takes us. I've given you a lot of good stuff to digest. The links for all of these episodes and podcasts are on the podcast page. And if something resonates with you or you think it will touch, move, and inspire someone else, pay it forward. Let others know you too have pride and an open heart. And you might be wondering why I waited to release this episode towards the end of the month. Well, I'll tell you why. How often do you find yourself celebrating a month filled with activities only to see it fade away once the month ends? I'm choosing the end of the month for two reasons. One, because the ADA anniversary and National Disability Independence Day actually falls on the 26th, but also, let's think about ways to continue being proud beyond the month of celebration. No matter what community you hold space for or identify with, think about ways you can continue to amplify your message. And I will promise to do the same. In fact, beginning in August, we are back at it with new episodes every week and something new to keep the conversation going after each episode drops. I cannot wait to share more about that in the coming weeks. But until then, thank you for your support and being part of the journey. And don't forget, if you have a story of your own that you would like to share or know someone who would be a great guest, reach out to me. Let me know. And if you yourself need further support on your own healing journey, I'm in your corner. Drop me a line, connect with me on social media at Hilary Russo, or even on my website at hilaryrusso.com, and we'll go from there. Until then, be proud of who you are, be kind to your mind, and as always, don't forget to laugh.